Hi everybody, welcome to my channel for a new battle report. Happy New Year everybody. First of all, I hope you had some good holidays for those of you who had holidays and you were able to enjoy that and also maybe play a couple of games. For me it was definitely the occasion to play some games and some games at home on the table, which is always more enjoyable than playing online. I had the occasion to play a practice game against my usual opponent, Lichtmeister, who was playing his Vampire Covenant, and I was using my Ogre. So this is new list after the update. I wanted to try out some other stuff. What did I bring out this time? I wanted to try out the Rotten Joe double Kiniter combo that I didn't try a lot until now, to be honest, with Ogre. So I wanted to try out to see how it goes. Then the usual build, which is Kingslayer, Pet Weapon, Destiny's Call. Then I had a Can BSB with only Binding Scroll and Cult Leader, but no defensive stuff. 2 Adept, an Adept Thaumaturgy, Iron Fist, Book of Arcane Mastery, Lightning Vambrace, so he has 4 spells, and an Adept Shamanism with Magical Heirloom and Pet Weapon, who has 3 spells as well. So this is 7 spell, 2 channels, and I have an 8 spell with the Frost Mammoth. Then the core setup, 2 Darts, 10 Bruises, 8 Merc Vets, 4 Tusker Cavalry, 2 Kiniter, 1 Saber-tooth Tiger, and the Frosty. So basically, I have a decent magic phase from distance, decent magic phase in close combat. I wanted to try out the new Fighty Merc Vets. As you can see, for less than 600 points, you have 8 Merc Vets that can play with the freezing aura from the Frost Mammoth to strike before some unit. I thought it could be a decent choice, so let's try out and see how that goes. And I try to put everywhere where there is a unit, so not single model, I put a champion to be able to give them Breath Weapon, which is definitely a spell that I'm going to pick in most of my games. My opponent was trying the following. It's a type of list that he played already in the past, which is around 3 blocks that are very solid. The Ghast, Ghouls, Skeleton, that are going to be buffed by the 2 Wagon, the Coat of the Damned, and the Cadaver Wagon, which I think is very resilient. Then he has some zombies as bunker, 2 chaff piece, and then some combat pieces, which is 2x3 Vampire Knight and a zombie dragon, which could be a good zoner, counter charger, and so on. So smaller unit. And for his magical setup, as you can see, he has a Master Occultism, Nosferatu with Binding Scroll, is an Adept Evoke BSB, Strigoi Bestial Bulk with a Great Weapon, Magical Heirloom. So this guy is going to go into the Ghast unit to make them scoring, which I think is pretty strong. And then he has a strong character on the Zombie Dragon. Basically, he's stubborn, so he's not basically annoyed too much by static res, which I think is very often a weakness for single model. And he can force his character into duel. He's going to reduce 1 attack when he's going to be in challenge. So yeah, it's quite strong build. We played randomly King of the Hill on Refuse Flank, and below you have the spell selection for both players. Matchup analysis, so definitely going to try to kill his chaff as soon as possible to get control of the movement phase. For that I have my 2 darts that can try to charge them, or I can use my blast as well. Then also the Kiniter could put some pressure on the chaff at some point. Core unit seems easier to engage than the Ghast. Ghast are very resilient. I mean, res 5, Thorp, regen is really tough. He has multiple zoner that could make the standoff hard to break. Thinking about Vampire Knights, they deal a ton of attack when they charge. The dragon is unchaffable and quite strong in the matchup as well. I have nothing to get rid of him from distance, so definitely these are some units that could make hard for me to push forward, but definitely the Kiniter are going to be here my tools to try to open the game, break the standoff, and put pressure on key pieces like his 2 buff wagons. Stubborn dragon could be an issue to deal with. Mathematically spoken, I have decent chances of it's almost a 50-50 duel, dragon versus the Great Khan. Depends a lot then what kind of buff he has, if he's within the range of the Coat of Damned. But definitely the Great Khan could fancy his chances in a duel against the dragon. That's probably my best tool to get rid of him, other than a charge from Tuskers or Merc Vets, for example. Estimation, I still felt that I should have a slight advantage. I mean, King of the Hill should be to my advantage. I'm a bit better in a one-on-one fight. I have some chaff, I'm threatening from behind, and I know that for Vampire Covenant, the amount of attack that I can bring with the Death Stars, the Mervets, and the Tusker are going to be most likely an issue in combat. Deployment. So I won the roll for side, and basically I picked the wall as my King of the Hill, which I think is the smart choice. I gave him an impassable in his strong flank, and then the only choice that he had was a field in the middle of the board, which is directly facing my hill. So I felt definitely that the choose of side gave me an advantage here. I hear sometimes people complaining about the fact that on King of the Hill you can have a huge advantage sometimes when winning the roll for sides. I don't really agree on that, because I think in most cases it could be I think very often it's an advantage to lose the roll for side to be able to start, and having it the opposite on King of the Hill, that sometimes you can gain a good advantage by winning the roll for side, I think is also interesting and a bit different. So I kind of like it that you can get some advantage on that. I think it also makes the game quite interesting, to be honest. This is a picture after my turn 1, but I'm going to tell you what happened at deployment. We exchanged drops. So he told me you can start to deploy, which I think was a smart decision from him. I didn't want to drop for first turn. I put down 1 dart, 2 dart, and the dog. And after that, he continued to deploy small stuff. I dropped for first turn. I put here my Tusker Cav, Death Star in the middle, Merc on the left, and then Frost Mammoth to close the flank and support with Freezing Aura on the Merc. And like his counter deployment was 3 VK on the side to threaten the flank of the Frosty, which I think is smart. The gas with the BSB, 1 chaff piece, the bunker with Cadaver Wagon, ghouls, skeleton with the coat, 2nd chaff piece, 3 VK, and he wanted to place his dragon. The only problem he had is with the diagonal. He just left the space for it, but not to be completely out of charge range of the Tuskers. My turn 1. Attempted a double 6 charge with the Tuskers on a dragon. Basically, for me, it's kind of a game breaking. I think it's huge in the game. If I get this charge, he's not buffed, I'm going to strike hard, have impact hit, charge in the flank. There is a very good chance that I can get rid of him. So that could be really huge. And the downside is basically nothing, because I checked first of all, if I fail charge 6, which is what I did, it's going to be a charge on 9 for the VK, and the dragon is looking sideways. So the VK alone, I think I don't get rid of the Tusker, so I'm going to be fine. And no matter what I do turn 1, is going to use, because this chaff piece is like kind of trapped. I mean, the distance is quite close, so he has to activate it as soon as possible. So no matter what happened here on this right flank, is going to chaff me with the dogs and try to push me. So the only I think he's not going to leave me any distance that I can get a possible charge here. So he's going to chaff me no matter what. So as said, be chaffed to be chaffed. I mean, I rather just attempt for this long charge that could be huge in the game. Failed that charge, the rest I just move slightly forward. On the left I cover the angle that those guys don't go out of arc, but I'm still able to give the Freezing Aura here in the middle. I forgot to mention I have here my Shamanism Adept, Great Khan, BSB, and my Thaumaturgy Adept. And he has, the General is here, the Zombie Dragon and the BSB is here. Magic Phase, I just got 1 wound off the dragon with Swarm of Insects. He's turn 1. I move slightly back to give me long charges. That's like an 11 rollable on the ghouls. And basically, I couldn't really try that, because if I try that and don't go through the unit, then it can basically flank me 2 times and just get rid of my unit. So that's a huge risk for me. I attempt a long charge with the VK as well against my dart here on the double 6. I accepted the risk because I measured that before and I was fine with this charge attempt. So he failed that one. Obviously it's not great for me if he makes it, but I think the failed charge is not so good for him, as we will see. He chaffs me here, the Tuskers on the flank, and push the dragon to the side to be ready to double charge me next round. Other than that, I just reposition and here starts to attempt a flanking maneuver, so to say. Magic Phase, he heal 1 wound of the dragon, I dispel the creation of a unit, and he got reroll to wound on the ghoul just to make sure I cannot charge them. Basically, it would be too risky for me. And on my turn, I spot a mistake from him. I don't know if you saw it, but what I can do is basically charge with the bruisers here, and then charge with my Death Star all the way here, and I get an overrun into the VK. And I checked before doing all that, I checked that I can block his counter charge of the court with entering the Keen Eater, and I can block the counter charge of the ghoul with marching the dart. So I take the opening, and now we know that's going to be a bloody game, and it's going to go either way. So that's my charges. I reform those guys, being on the wall, making very hard for the dragon to come against me. This is an easy overrun on a 3. Other than that, I just chaff, move those guys sideways. So basically here I take my time, since I've gained an advantage on the right. I don't need to hurry too much on the left. And here I use my 2 Keen Eaters. I needed at least one to enter to block him for counter charges, but by using another one, I just restrain even more his movement, basically. In Magic Phase, I got Hereditary on my Death Star. So basically, I thought this long and hard. When I overrun here, what he's going to do with his dragon? He's not going to come against the Tuskers because I have a champion. I can just challenge, and basically I'm going to be steadfast and counter charge with the Death Star, and it's going to be dead. So he's not going to do that. So he's most likely trying to come against the Death Star, because if he doesn't, I'm going to get a free pivot, and then it's going to be very hard for him to react. So he's going to go against the Death Star, which is why I buff my Death Star, get Hereditary off. And then I got also some Brass Weapon because I was too far from some spell. Yeah, I was too far to smite, and it just dispelled the one from Shamanist, basically. Close combat, I got my overrun on a 3 against the VK, and the Bruiser Dart just reformed. His turn 2, charge a chaff with the court, counter charge with the dragon, which is going to be exciting. He chaff my Merc and push with the Ghast. Push those guys in front of the Frost Mammoth. Here I think he got confused because he measured that if I charge here, I'm not within 9 of the Ghast. But the combat between the Ghast and the Merc is not going to happen here this round because I'm chaffed. So I didn't get exactly what he wanted to do here. Yeah, here he turned around with the ghouls to face this guy and block him from the flank. But he couldn't really block this Keen Eater from charging here, basically. In Magic Phase, I Binding Scroll, Whisper of the Veil. Then he got a Breast Weapon on his General, I guess, to try to kill a Keen Eater, which did nothing. I Dispel the Creation, which he tried to chaff my red Keen Eater, and then he failed the Grave Call on my Keen Eater. Close combat, he killed 2.5 tribesmen. I had 2 wounds left, and then by fleeing I had 2 DTs to take on the Ghast, and I lose the 2 remaining wounds, which can happen. And then in this close combat I decided to take the challenge with the champion, because I wanted to be sure that I get rid of those cavalry guy to be able to reform and then counter charge and then take the challenge with the Great Khan. And I think that's it for close combat. My turn. Yeah, here you can see a better picture of it. I have some numbers. I just got rid of the VK. As you can see, I roll pretty low with the Great Khan, nothing with the impact, but then fortunately at least the bruisers delivered and did the 5 remaining wounds, so quite happy with that, because it would have been annoying if he sticks with at least one guy. I cannot turn around and I lose a lot of static rays, basically. My turn 3, so I was able to reform, then I turn around and I charge with the Tuskers. I charge with 1 Keen Eater to block the ghouls, I charge with another one to block the court. Those guys attempted the charge on the flank of the chaff, which was quite important. It was a charge on 8, would have allowed me to block those guys easily and then do something better with the Merc. Here I just turn around and move away. By the positioning of the Ghast, they are blocked because of the dogs. So basically the charge of the Ghast, even with the dog charging, is impossible on the Merc. So I don't like the way that I'm facing, but at least I'm in range to give all the buffs here. And basically everything is going to be decided on this combat. I have like more than half of the points of my army in this combat. I need to get rid of the dragon. But maybe I had a better solution to solve that. My dog was a bit too far away to chaff properly, so I felt this was maybe the better option. and I didn't want to risk the combat Ghast against the Merc Vets already because I need to buff this combat. So I cannot buff here, buff here. I felt it was too risky, and basically it could easily roll well in close combat, get rid of me, and I would lose huge points. So I decided to take no risk. Here the Frosty decided to charge. In the magic phase, he Binding Scroll Smite. He dispelled +1 resilience on the Death Star. I got hereditary on the Death Star at least. So Great Khan has some buffs. Close combat. He stick and reform. I kill some guys. Here I did 1 wound. He did 1 wound to me, and he passes his Vampiric 6 up. So he's still here with 3 models. And here we take a challenge between the Great Khan and the Dragon. What happened? The Great Khan did nothing, so I was within range of the court, which is very important. So I roll a bit lower than expected, and I do 0 wounds. He did 1 wound with the vampire and 1 wound with the dragon, as you can see, which is expected. So I lost 2 wounds. He lost combat by a bunch, but due to Stubborn dividing the wounds by 2, plus meeting of mine on the dragon, giving him necromantic aura, he lost 1 wound less. So he just lost 1 wound at the end of combat. I had 2 rank, a banner, a charge, a flank, a big flank, and he did 2 wounds, but because of all these buffs I mentioned at the beginning, he just lost 1 wound. So after this round of combat, I felt a bit desperate, because at some point I'm going to not hold anymore here, and if I'm still stuck in this combat, basically I'm lost. Because as you can see, my Mervets are not looking at anything in the middle, so I'm a bit in trouble. So Vampire Covenant turn 3. As you can see, you see his reform here. You didn't see the model, but I reform also to be 4 wide after we discuss, to just be out of range of the court. I think this is quite huge. So I reform 2 models here to be out of the range and help me a little bit in close combat. So what he did, he just reformed the dogs, move forward, turn the gas to look at me. Here we see stuck in combat. He countercharge. Yeah, he got a smart countercharge. With the reform of the ghoul, he was able to countercharge with the bunker in the flank of the Keen Eater, and it's going to be an overrun on an 8 to be in my back, which could be huge. Could be game breaking, basically. We'll see if he managed to get through the Keen Eater. I think that's the whole thing. Magic Phase, he healed a wound of the dragon. He got a breast weapon on his general to try to help kill the Keen Eater. He got also Whispers on my Death Star. I dispel, reroll 2 wound, I guess. The ghouls one-shot my Keen Eater, which was full life, but they just one-shot it. The Frost Mammoth did 1 wound, he did 1 wound to me. And then here, he didn't manage to kill me, he did only 2 wounds to my Keen Eater. I have some numbers for you. So here on the left, this is the numbers of all his attacks on the Keen Eater. And he did, as you can see, 2 wounds total. So I put everything. There is 6 attack strength 5 from the court, there is some strength 5 attack from the vampire, courtier, and then a lot of attacks from the rest of the units. But as you can see, I managed still to survive. And then challenge between the Great Khan and his dragon. He did 0 wounds to me. As you can see, the fact that he hasn't the court anymore in the range changes a lot. And I managed, last time I rolled 0 wounds, and this time I roll a bit higher than expected, and I rolled 3 wounds. And he just died from combat res. And I mean, that was the end of the game. Because as you can see, next round is going to be my turn. And I have just these 2 units with a free pivot that can charge stuff. And we just stop here. We discussed after that, analyze a bit the game, but it didn't matter much to continue to play, because just to tell him, okay, I'm going to chaff here, charge here, kill that, turn around, and then go in a multi-charge to kill everything, didn't matter much for us because it's a training game. Post-game analysis, so I think to be able to choose the train and how it was cut gave me an advantage. In micro, I think it should have planned better to not allow me this double 6 charge turn 1, which could have been used. For the record, I rolled an 11, so it was close. Chaff allowing the overrun, I think that was his key mistake. He should have not charged with the VK on double 6, or should have measured better to see if he could have chaffed differently with the dogs maybe, but this opened the game way too much for him. Great Khan against the dragon, as you saw from the probability charts, I mean, it was dicey. was always going to be huge for the game. Depending, he could have killed me. I almost killed him. I made some big wounds on the round when I needed it. So I was lucky when I needed it, and but it was always going to be very important for the rest of the game. Obviously, for me it was a bit the better timing, because the timing when I got these wounds was his turn, and then I'm going to charge, which is also huge. Keen Eater holding the zombie counter charge was really important to not allow him to roll the 8 overrun, which could have helped me a lot to stick this combat. Turn 3 Ogre, not sure my Merc move was the right move. On the list, I love my magical setup. I felt I had plenty of options, lot of spell, good from distance, good in close combat. I think I missed a little something to get rid of the chaff from distance. Merc Vets with naked character didn't convince me. I felt I was in danger. If the gas can charge me, can allocate a lot of attack on my BSB, and I would be in trouble. Move out of the unit against an Occultist Master was for me too dangerous, so I didn't like it too much. I think either I need to invest in some defensive stuff on the character going into the Merc Vets, or change something in the list. And then Dragon was a problem. Obviously, I didn't have much tool to get rid of him. And as you saw, even my best tool, it's a dicey fight. I came up on top, but it wasn't easy at all. This is a very strong character. I think we are going to see this build quite a lot, because as you saw, static res is almost doing nothing on him. He's quite strong in combat. Definitely not easy to get rid of him, and basically I was lucky that he had to counter charge in the flank of the Bruisers to block them, because if you could have just moved to the flank and then go against the Tuskers, I think I would have had huge issue, because he's distracting, he has a lot of wounds, a good armor save. It was always going to be difficult to face him in close combat. So definitely Dragon not so easy to fight against. Okay guys, that's it for this training game. So fast game with a lot of action, but quite interesting to play. Obviously got way more open than what we expected because of this small chaff mistake, but had then huge consequences because he cannot flee because of his undead capabilities. So definitely something to pay more attention, but this was also risky for me. As you saw, it could have turned out differently for me, and I could have also lost big. So definitely it gave me an opening to win big, but also to lose big, which was also kind of scary at some time. After the first round of duel between the Great Khan and the Zombie Dragon, I wasn't so confident. I was like saying, I'm kind of expecting the Great Khan to die to be able then to strike with the Bruisers and everybody else and try to get rid of him. But I was a bit scared that I might be blocked too long in this close combat, and basically he could counter charge me, and then that's the game basically. What he could have also considered is at some point to charge out with the coat against the flank of the Bruisers. Could have been also a decent choice to block me a bit longer. He wasn't chaffed with the coat, so to charge out of the skeleton in the flank of the Bruiser could have been also a decent choice to block me a bit longer. So he still had some option. So guys, that's it. Thanks a lot for watching this video, and talk to you soon on the channel. Bye.